President Cross, good to have you back on the program.
Thanks, Mike. It's nice to be here.
So you talk about the reasons for this and declining birth rate, aging demographics. But my question is, how does merging campuses change that?
Yeah, it certainly doesn't increase the birth rate, which would obviously impact demographics. What it does do is align us better to retain those campuses in communities that are struggling with the demographics. As you probably know, the projected 18 to 64-year-old range of people, that's declining, and I shouldn't say declining, it's flat. I think the growth there over the next 30 years is expected to be about 0.4%. So how do we adjust and reorganize to bring more programs to those communities? So not just retain what we're doing, but expand services and access at a time when resources are perhaps the most challenged. Because the decline in enrollment in those campuses directly impacts their revenues. We're increasingly tuition dependent, and they feel at the first, they're on the front line of this demographic change, Mike.
But would you anticipate that merging campuses would actually increase enrollment?
In this way. So what we do know is that more students need more bachelor's degrees, and these institutions are transfer institutions. So we're trying to manage the access by expanding the kind of programs we bring to those campuses structurally. So I expect to see more baccalaureate degrees brought to these campuses, serving some of these communities. This expands the reach of the four-year institutions directly into these communities. So we may not grow a lot of enrollment, but hopefully we will grow four-year graduates through this process.
Are we, let me be blunt about this, are we tinkering around the edges? Because you have some of these two-year campuses where the student population is 50% smaller than it was in 2010. Enrollment in the two-year campus is down 32%. Did you give serious thought to saying maybe we have to close some of these campuses? Maybe this business model just doesn't work anymore?
Certainly we did. We looked at closing a few campuses as options.
Two and four-year institutions?
No, just two. Just two. Given the declines you just talked about, Mike, we actually looked at that. That just isn't a good option. Why? Those communities are already struggling, many of them, given the demographic changes, the loss of business and other things. The presence of the university in those communities is so important to their future, and we're committed to that. How do we provide the adequate services, adequate programs, adequate courses to meet the needs of folks in that community without pulling out? And that's part of the challenge. Restructuring, treating them as branch campuses and/or centers in ways that allow the university to expand what they offer is an effort to address that.
Are there cost savings, significant cost savings in this? And if so, how do you do that? I assume that you must have some idea. If you're talking about streamlining or reducing staff, you must have some idea how many people might be affected by that.
I wish I did. I think a lot of that's going to flow together over the next several months through the implementation plan. How do we implement that? But let me speak to what logically should flow out of this. The two-year colleges have already done a wonderful job of consolidating some of their administrative services, what we would call support activities, human resources, IT, budgeting, et cetera. We want to expand that throughout the university in a greater way. So we spend less money on support services in terms of administrative support services and shift those resources to the classroom. We think we can do more and more of that. It's part of what we're referring to as a reform agenda. So this fits nicely into that. So yes, there will be savings there. It's hard to predict. Whenever you consolidate, streamline, or you standardize processes, you do achieve efficiencies. Hopefully you also improve effectiveness.
What's being done here is being watched all around the country. I noticed some reaction in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel this week from Terry Hartle, who is the executive with the American Council of Education in Washington. You may have seen this quote. He said that the reforms you're talking about are reasonable and appropriate, but then went on to say, and I'm quoting now, it's a recognition that the state of Wisconsin is not going to have as robust a system of higher education as it had in the past. What's your response to that?
Well, I differ with Terry. I know Terry. I think that it's going to take a different approach. And I think what he means by as robust, it's not going to be all things to all people everywhere. We're going to have to find new ways of delivering, supporting, and providing programs, courses, and services without all of the administrative structure. And I think that's what he's referring to. We won't be as robust, I think that's his term. But I find that to be contradictory, because in our world, we're trying to expand the third year and fourth year coursework on these two-year campuses.
There has been some reaction. I think I would describe it as somewhat muted. People have not come out and said this is an awful idea, but people have a lot of questions. One thing you do hear is from some faculty members, from some students, they said, you know, Wisconsin's about the idea of shared governance, that we have a say in this, and yet we kind of feel like we were surprised by this. We didn't know this big a change was being discussed. In retrospect, was there anything that you could have done differently to involve faculty, to involve students in this decision?
Well, first of all, that's actually a true statement, because we did work on this without bringing a lot of input in, but we were working and securing information from different research groups, particularly around demographics, impact on enrollment trends, what's the correlation, what actions have been done in the past, what's being done in other states, Georgia, Pennsylvania, elsewhere. And then we did speak to business leaders and other community leaders. We spoke to some folks around the state in different ways, but we were also hearing unprompted kinds of responses. You need to do something about this structure. This has got to change. This is not a long-term sustainable structure. So from my perspective, I think it was important to say, here's where we're going, here's the goal, here's why. Now I need your help. Let's work together to pull this into a very workable and doable process within this time frame.
So you're going to do listening sessions with faculty, with students? What do you plan?
Oh, I think that there's going to be a lot of student and faculty engagement in how do we do this? How do we get from here to there? What are the things we have to be concerned about? How do we make this work? The implementation teams and the steering committees that will be formed very quickly will be engaging those folks, as well as community members. These communities own these facilities, and that's important for us to respect and retain that.
I did see somebody, I think from UW-Barron County, saying that they were concerned that they're giving up some local control in this. They're worried that they believe they have a better sense of their community, of their surrounding area, of how to meet the needs of the people who live there, than perhaps aligning with a larger university some miles away. Are they giving up local control as part of this?
I think it will be no different than what they currently have. Actually, it's becoming more local because Eau Claire is closer than Madison, and that's the change. And I think I spent some time on the phone with some of those folks, and once they understood the expanded opportunities and the partnership, not just with Eau Claire, but with Stout, they were excited about that. So I think there's some communication issues that we have to keep communicating. One of the reasons I'm on your show, Mike.
Practically speaking, how does this work, for example, for a faculty member? Let's say somebody who is at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. So this is a Tier 1 research institution. Madison is a Tier 1. UWM is a Tier 1. Will faculty members from UW-Milwaukee be teaching at UW-Waukesha or UW-Washington County? Will faculty members from those two campuses be teaching at UWM? How does that practically work?
A lot of that's yet to be determined, but one of the tenets that I think, one of the principles in this merger that is really important, is that the faculty at the two-year campuses that have tenure already must be merged into the disciplines, the departments with tenure at the receiving institution. That's more complicated at an R1 like Milwaukee. Mm-hmm. So I agree and understand that, but I think we're going to have to act to do that. I think that they'll be surprised at the credentials and the capability and the historical publishing and the things they've done. I think they'll be surprised at the quality of the faculty that make that transition. At the same time, I want them to work a lot of that out within these guidelines. I don't think it'll be nearly as difficult as people think. Now, the second part of your question, Mike, was will Milwaukee faculty be teaching at Waukesha? And vice versa. Will some of those folks be teaching at Milwaukee? That's going to be determined by enrollment and what happens. I would suspect there will be programs that go from Milwaukee to Waukesha at the third and fourth year level, and how those are taught will be determined by the provosts, the deans that make that happen. The enrollment, I believe, is going to drive a lot of these decisions.
Ray Cross is the president of the University of Wisconsin System. It's always good to have you on the program. We appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Mike.